Every year, millions of people set goals, new habits to build, skills to learn, projects to complete. And yet, despite the best intentions, many of these goals remain unfinished. Deadlines are pushed back, motivation fades. The excitement that once fueled action turns into guilt and frustration. Why? Because achieving goals isn't just about effort, it's about understanding how the brain works. Procrastination isn't just a bad habit, it's wired into human psychology. The brain prioritizes short-term comfort over long-term success, tricking us into postponing difficult tasks, chasing distractions, and underestimating how much time we actually have. Even the most disciplined people battle these internal roadblocks. The difference is, they've learned to recognize them, rewire their thinking, and work with their brains rather than against them. The Stoics understood this concept long before modern psychology confirmed it. Marcus Aurelius warned against waiting for inspiration, reminding himself that action, not hesitation, defines a person's character. Seneca saw how perfectionism leads to inaction, teaching that it is better to begin imperfectly than to delay endlessly in search of the right moment. Today, neuroscience reinforces these lessons, showing that motivation is unreliable, habits are more powerful than willpower, and the mind is not designed to push us toward difficult tasks. It is designed to avoid them. In this episode, we're breaking down the hidden psychology of procrastination, why the brain resists action, why motivation fades, and why even the most ambitious goals can feel impossible. More importantly, we'll explore practical strategies to overcome these mental traps, rewire thought patterns, and make productivity effortless. The problem has never been a lack of ambition. It's a lack of understanding how the mind resists action and how to counter it. The question isn't whether you have the ability to achieve your goals. The question is, will you take control of your mind before it convinces you to wait just one more day? Why does the brain prefer laziness over action? The human brain is not designed for productivity. It is designed for survival. It does not prioritize ambition, creativity, or discipline. Instead, it seeks efficiency, conserving energy wherever possible. This is why taking action, especially on difficult tasks, feels like an internal battle. The brain sees effort as a potential threat, something that drains resources, and so it instinctively resists. This resistance is not laziness in the traditional sense, it is biology at work. Neuroscience explains this through the energy conservation principle. The brain is responsible for running every function in the body, and it operates on limited energy. To prevent unnecessary exertion, it favors habitual behaviors, actions that require little thought or decision-making. This is why scrolling through social media feels effortless, while sitting down to work on a challenging task feels overwhelming. One action follows a familiar neural pathway, requiring minimal energy, while the other demands focus, willpower, and cognitive strain. The brain's default setting is to choose the easier route. Another major factor is the dopamine reward system. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter responsible for motivation and pleasure. The brain releases it when we accomplish something, but it also rewards us for instant gratification, quick, easy pleasures like eating junk food, watching short videos, or browsing distractions. When given a choice between a long-term goal with a delayed reward and an immediate, effortless pleasure, the brain is naturally drawn to the latter. This is why working toward meaningful goals feels so difficult. It lacks the instant dopamine hit that quick distractions provide. The Stoics understood this long before neuroscience confirmed it. Marcus Aurelius often wrote about the battle between reason and impulse, reminding himself that the easy path is rarely the right one. He knew that action must be taken despite resistance, that discipline must override the brain's desire for comfort. Seneca observed that people often delay action not because they lack time, but because they lack control over their impulses. He warned that waiting for the right moment is an illusion, that postponement is merely the brain's way of avoiding effort. So how do you break this biological resistance to action? The first step is awareness, recognizing that the brain's tendency to avoid work is not personal failure, but a built-in mechanism. The second step is hacking the reward system, finding ways to make effort rewarding. This can be done by breaking tasks into smaller, immediate wins that trigger dopamine release, reinforcing productive behavior. The final step is removing unnecessary choices, making action the default rather than something that requires constant willpower. If left unchecked, the brain will always choose the path of least resistance. But with the right strategies, it can be retrained, redirected toward action rather than avoidance. The mind will resist effort, but the question is, will you allow it to control you, or will you take control of it? The strong start syndrome, why we lose motivation after the initial excitement. There's an undeniable rush that comes with starting something new, whether it's committing to a fitness routine, launching a business idea, or embarking on a personal transformation. The beginning is filled with energy. Everything feels possible. Progress seems inevitable. The brain floods with excitement, making every action feel effortless. But then something shifts. The motivation that once propelled you forward begins to fade. The task that once felt exciting now feels like work. The discipline that seemed easy now requires conscious effort. Slowly, the enthusiasm that fueled the strong start weakens, and before long, what once felt urgent begins to feel optional. This is where most people stop, not because they lack ability, but because they mistook the first wave of excitement for long-term motivation. The reason for this shift lies in how the brain processes reward and effort. When we begin something new, the brain releases dopamine, the chemical responsible for motivation and pleasure. This surge creates an illusion, an internal high that makes effort feel good. The novelty of a new habit, project or goal is enough to keep action consistent without much resistance. But as days pass, the brain adapts. The initial excitement wears off, dopamine levels drop, and the effort that once felt natural starts to feel like a burden. The mind, always seeking the path of least resistance, begins looking for easier, more immediately rewarding activities. This is why the first week of a diet feels easy, but by the third week, cravings and excuses take over. It's why a new business idea seems thrilling in its early stages, but once obstacles appear, motivation dwindles. Most people assume that this drop in motivation is a sign that they are failing, that something is wrong, that maybe they weren't as committed as they thought. But Marcus Aurelius saw it differently. He understood that motivation is unreliable, fleeting by nature, and that waiting for inspiration is one of the greatest traps of the mind. He reminded himself daily that action must come first, that discipline must override mood, that a person cannot afford to wait until they feel like doing something. They must simply do it. His philosophy was simple. The body must obey, regardless of how the mind tries to resist. If he waited for motivation, he would accomplish nothing. Seneca went even further, seeing the cycle of excitement and decline as a test. a way to separate those who truly commit from those who merely enjoy the idea of progress. He warned against those who only work when they feel inspired, reminding them that progress is not made in moments of enthusiasm, but in the quiet, difficult hours when effort is the only thing left to rely on. He believed that true discipline begins where excitement ends, and that those who only act when motivation is high will forever find themselves stuck in cycles of starting and stopping, never truly moving forward. But what makes the difference between those who continue after motivation fades and those who quit? It is understanding that the drop in excitement is not a failure. It's an inevitable part of the process. Those who succeed do not wait for motivation. They build habits that keep them moving even when they don't feel like it. They anticipate the loss of enthusiasm and prepare for it. Instead of relying on a surge of energy to push them forward, they create systems that make action a non-negotiable part of their day. This means shifting the focus from feelings to structure. Consistency must override intensity. A person who exercises every day, even for 10 minutes, will always achieve more than the one who trains for hours, but inconsistently. Effort does not need to be extreme. It needs to be reliable. Progress must be visible. The brain craves reward, and without seeing progress, motivation will collapse. Tracking even the smallest wins, pages written, hours studied, workouts completed, triggers the brain's reward system, reinforcing the habit and keeping momentum alive. Habits must be stronger than moods. Those who achieve their goals do not debate with themselves each morning about whether to act. They remove the choice altogether. The question is not, should I do this today? But this is what I do. They do not wait for a perfect moment. They create discipline through repetition. The true test is not how exciting the beginning feels. It is what happens after the excitement fades. The mind will resist. Excuses will appear. Motivation will vanish. But those who understand this do not panic. They expect it. They prepare for it. And most importantly, they continue anyway. Excitement fades, but the question is, will you? The perfectionist trap. How it secretly destroys progress. Perfectionism disguises itself as a virtue. It convinces you that waiting for the right moment, the perfect plan, or the best conditions is a sign of intelligence and high standards. But in reality, perfectionism is one of the greatest barriers to progress. It does not push you toward excellence. It keeps you stuck in hesitation, trapped in endless preparation, paralyzed by the fear of imperfection. It convinces you that if something cannot be done flawlessly, it should not be done at all. And so instead of moving forward, you wait, you plan, you refine, but you do not act. The mind uses perfectionism as a defense mechanism. By convincing you that the work isn't ready yet, it shields you from the discomfort of potential failure. If you never start, you never have to risk falling short. If you never put your work out into the world, it can never be judged. But this is a false sense of safety, because in avoiding failure, you also avoid success. In delaying action, you trade real progress for an illusion of control. And in waiting for the perfect conditions, you waste the only time that truly exists, the present moment. Marcus Aurelius understood that hesitation in the face of imperfection is a form of self-sabotage. He reminded himself constantly that the world does not wait for perfection. It moves forward regardless of whether one is ready. He wrote, "You could be good today, but instead you choose tomorrow." He saw how easily people convince themselves that they will begin later when they are more prepared, when the conditions align. But he knew that later is an illusion, that the only time to act is now. Seneca went further, warning that those who fear imperfection end up achieving nothing at all. He recognized that no book, no idea, no action will ever feel completely finished or flawless. He believed that hesitation caused by perfectionism is often just fear in disguise, the fear of criticism, the fear of mediocrity, the fear of not being enough. He urged people to embrace the concept of starting ugly, to release themselves from the illusion that something must be perfect before it is shared, attempted, or pursued. It is better to begin imperfectly than to never begin at all. Epictetus, who taught that control lies not in the external world, but in one's own choices, saw perfectionism as a refusal to engage with reality. He believed that waiting for the ideal circumstances was nothing more than an excuse, a way to avoid the discomfort of taking responsibility. He taught that action shapes ability, not the other way around. Mastery does not come from waiting until one is ready. It comes from beginning, failing, adapting, and improving over time. This principle is more relevant today than ever. In an age where social media presents polished versions of success, where people compare their first steps to someone else's finished masterpiece, the illusion of perfection is stronger than ever. It convinces people that unless they can produce something extraordinary, they should not try at all. It keeps them rewriting the first page of a novel instead of finishing the story. It makes them spend months designing a plan instead of taking the first step. It tricks them into believing that real work can wait, while they fine-tune the idea of progress rather than engaging with the reality of it. But those who achieve great things do not wait for perfection. They move forward despite imperfection. The painter does not wait until they are a master to pick up the brush. They begin, they fail, they learn. The athlete does not train only when they feel strong. They train even when the results are slow, because progress is made in repetition, not in ideal conditions. The lesson is clear. Excellence is not a prerequisite for action. Action is a prerequisite for excellence. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that hesitation is a choice, not a necessity. Seneca warned that waiting for perfection is the quickest way to waste a lifetime. Epictetus saw that true power lies in those who act despite uncertainty. The world does not reward those who wait. It rewards those who start, refine, and improve along the way. So the question is not when you will be ready, but why you are still waiting. Emotional versus logical decision-making. Who's really in control? Every decision you make is a battle between two forces, emotion and logic. One is impulsive, driven by fear, excitement, and immediate gratification. The other is measured, focused on long-term consequences, and rooted in reason. Most people believe they are logical thinkers, that they make rational choices based on careful analysis. But in reality, emotions often sit in the driver's seat, steering actions before logic even has a chance to intervene. The mind, left untrained, defaults to what feels right, not necessarily what is right. This is why people abandon workouts after a bad day, spend money they don't have for a fleeting sense of comfort, or avoid difficult conversations because they fear discomfort. It is why procrastination takes over when a task feels overwhelming, even when logic knows that delaying will only make it worse. The emotional mind reacts to now, while the logical mind considers later. But in the absence of discipline, emotion wins because it speaks the loudest. Marcus Aurelius understood this struggle intimately. He wrote constantly about the need to separate thought from feeling, to ensure that action was dictated by reason rather than impulse. He reminded himself that just because something feels urgent does not mean it is important, and just because something feels difficult does not mean it should be avoided. He trained his mind to pause before acting, to question whether a reaction was based on clarity or simply a temporary emotional state. This ability to slow down, to challenge knee-jerk responses, was the foundation of his self-mastery. Seneca, in his reflections on human behavior, observed how often people allow emotions to distort their judgment. He saw how anger leads to regrettable words, how excitement leads to overcommitment, how fear leads to missed opportunities. He believed that true wisdom comes from recognizing these patterns and training oneself to pause before acting. He advised a simple but powerful practice: when emotions rise, delay action. This does not mean ignoring feelings, but allowing time for logic to take control before making a decision. Epictetus took a more direct approach, teaching that those who are ruled by emotion are not truly free. He saw that a person who cannot control their reactions, who explodes in anger, who gives in to every impulse, who allows fear to dictate their choices, is a slave to their emotions. To him, freedom was not found in external circumstances, but in the ability to govern oneself. He taught his students to observe their thoughts like a third party, to step back from their own emotions and analyze them as if they were watching someone else. Why am I feeling this? Is this reaction helping me? What would I advise a friend to do in this situation? These questions create space for logic to enter before emotion takes over. Modern psychology echoes these ancient insights. Studies on cognitive biases show that people consistently overestimate the importance of emotions in decision-making. The hot-cold empathy gap explains why individuals who are calm often make completely different choices than when they are emotional. The mind, when under stress or excitement, narrows its focus, prioritizing immediate relief over long-term benefit. This is why emotional decisions often feel right in the moment, but lead to regret afterward. So, how does one regain control? The answer is deliberate awareness. Pause before acting. When an emotion is strong, wait. Let logic have a chance to speak before making a decision. Train the brain to focus on long-term consequences. Ask, will this matter a week from now? A year from now? Create systems that override impulse. If logic says you need to exercise but emotions want comfort, remove the need for debate. Set the gym clothes out to the night before. Make the first step automatic. The Stoics did not believe in suppressing emotion. They believed in mastering it. Marcus Aurelius trained himself to act based on principle, not passing moods. Seneca observed his emotions before reacting, ensuring that his decisions served his future, not just his present. Epictetus saw that true strength lies not in controlling the world, but in controlling oneself. The mind will always have two voices, one driven by fleeting emotion, the other by reason. The question is, who are you allowing to make your decisions? The danger of big goals, why they feel impossible to achieve. Ambition fuels progress, but when a goal feels too large, too distant, or too overwhelming, the mind resists. The bigger the vision, the heavier the weight of expectation. A person looks at their dream, a career change, writing a book, mastering a skill, and instead of feeling inspired, they feel stuck. The path seems unclear, the journey too long, the work required too much. And so, rather than starting, they hesitate, they overthink, they wait. Not because they lack ability, but because they have made the mistake of looking at the mountain instead of the next step. The mind struggles with abstract goals. It does not process, "I want to become financially independent," the same way it processes, "I need to save $10 today." It does not handle, "I want to be in the best shape of my life," the same way it handles, "I will do 20 minutes of exercise right now." The brain is designed to focus on immediate, tangible actions, what can be done now, not vague, distant ambitions. This is why so many people set big goals yet fail to act. The vision is clear, but the process is undefined, and when the path is unclear, procrastination takes over. Marcus Aurelius understood that great things are built piece by piece. He reminded himself not to focus on the enormity of a task, but on the smallest action available in the moment. "Do what is in front of you," he wrote. He did not allow himself to be overwhelmed by the weight of responsibility. Instead, he approached each day with a practical mindset, knowing that action, no matter how small, is always within reach. Seneca saw that people often defeat themselves before they begin. They imagine a goal in its final form, and, feeling unworthy or incapable, they hesitate. He believed that progress is made not by waiting for the confidence to begin, but by beginning and allowing confidence to follow. He taught that rather than focusing on how much remains to be done, one should focus on what can be done now. While we wait for life, life passes. Action is the cure for hesitation. Epictetus took a different perspective. He believed that those who become overwhelmed by large goals do so because they are too attached to the outcome rather than the process. He saw that fulfillment is not in achieving a final result, but in the daily discipline of effort. The weight of a big goal disappears when one stops obsessing over when it will be completed and instead focuses on what can be done today. He advised his students to treat every task as if it were the only task, to give full attention to what was within their control, and let the long-term results take care of themselves. Modern psychology confirms this ancient wisdom. Studies show that the brain struggles with long-term rewards. It prioritizes what is immediate over what is important. This is why the concept of small wins is so powerful. Each small accomplishment, no matter how minor, builds momentum, triggering the brain's reward system and reinforcing progress. Success is not a single moment of achievement. It is the accumulation of daily effort. So how does one overcome the paralysis of big goals? Break them down. Instead of saying, "I need to write a book," say, "I will write 300 words today." Focus on today's action, not the end result. Thinking too far ahead creates anxiety. The only step that matters is the next one. Track small wins. Progress must be seen to be felt. Keep a record of every completed step, no matter how small. Marcus Aurelius trained himself to focus only on the task at hand. Seneca believed that action was the cure for hesitation, and Epictetus saw discipline as the key to progress. The lesson is clear. Big goals are only intimidating when viewed as a whole, but every mountain is climbed step by step. The challenge is not whether you can achieve something great. It is whether you can begin and then begin again until what once seemed impossible becomes inevitable. The brain's time miscalculation. Why you think you have more time than you do. Time feels abundant until it isn't. The mind plays a dangerous trick, convincing you that there is always more of it. I'll start tomorrow. I'll have time later. Next week, I'll be more focused. And so, plans are postponed. Important work is delayed, and life moves forward while action remains stuck in waiting. The brain creates the illusion that time is infinite, yet experience proves otherwise. Deadlines arrive faster than expected. Opportunities slip away unnoticed. The future that once seemed distant becomes the present, and suddenly time is no longer on your side. This miscalculation is deeply wired into human psychology. The mind struggles to comprehend the passage of time accurately. It underestimates how quickly the future becomes the present and overestimates how much can be done later. This is why people assume they can finish a project in an unrealistic time frame, why they think they will feel ready in the future, why they delay important tasks, believing there will be a better moment to begin. But time does not wait, and the longer one assumes it is available, the more of it is lost. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that procrastination is a form of self-deception. He saw that those who assume they have unlimited time end up wasting the days they do have. He wrote, "You could be good today, but instead you choose tomorrow." He understood that hesitation does not protect opportunity, it erodes it. The only time that can be controlled is now. To wait for a better moment is to assume life will pause for you. It won't. Seneca was even more direct, warning that people act as if life is endless, when in reality most of it is wasted. He observed that people fear losing money, property, or status, yet they throw away time, the one resource that cannot be replaced. We are not given a short life, but we make it short by wasting it. His philosophy was clear. If something is important, it must be done now. If a goal matters, it must be pursued today. To assume there will always be more time is to gamble with the most finite resource of all. Epictetus approached time from a different angle. He did not see procrastination as merely a loss of productivity, but as a failure to live fully. He taught that every moment is an opportunity to act, to grow, to shape one's future. To delay is not just to waste time, it is to postpone life itself. He encouraged his students to stop asking whether they were ready and instead ask, "What is stopping me from acting right now?" He knew that hesitation was not a result of poor timing, but of fear, the fear of imperfection, the fear of discomfort, the fear of failure. But life doesn't pause for hesitation. Modern psychology confirms this ancient wisdom. Studies show that people suffer from time discounting, a cognitive bias that makes the future feel abstract and distant. This is why deadlines feel far away until suddenly they are urgent. It is why people assume they will have more discipline, more motivation, more time later, yet when later arrives, the same excuses remain. The solution is not to wait for time to feel urgent, but to treat every moment as if it already is. So how does one break free from this illusion of time abundance? Set shorter deadlines. The brain responds to urgency. Give yourself artificial constraints. What would take months can often be done in weeks when approached with intensity. Use the compressed time technique. Ask yourself, if I only had half the time to complete this, what would I do differently? This forces clarity, removing procrastination disguised as preparation. Stop assuming later will be easier. It won't. The future version of you will have the same distractions, the same doubts, the same challenges. The only way to change outcomes is to change action, now. Marcus Aurelius refused to wait for the right moment to act. Seneca saw procrastination as a theft of life, and Epictetus understood that hesitation is a choice. The lesson is clear. There is no later, no perfect moment, no ideal future. The only time to act is now. And if you do not take control of your time, time will take control of you. The power of environment. How to remove procrastination. Triggers. Most people assume that willpower is the key to productivity, that success is simply a matter of self-discipline and internal motivation. But what if the real battle is not inside the mind, but in the world around you? Environment shapes behavior more than willpower ever could. A person surrounded by distractions will struggle to focus, no matter how determined they are. A workspace cluttered with interruptions will override even the strongest work ethic. The truth is, procrastination is often not a personal failure, but a reflection of an unoptimized environment. The mind is constantly reacting to cues, subtle signals in the surroundings that either push it toward action or pull it toward distraction. A phone within arm's reach, a social media tab left open, a couch more inviting than a workspace. All of these make procrastination the default choice. People don't check their phones 100 times a day because they intend to waste time. They do it because the phone is there, constantly triggering an automatic response. The easier a distraction is to access, the harder it is to resist. Marcus Aurelius understood that focus requires deliberate effort, not just internal discipline, but external adjustments. He structured his life in a way that minimized distractions, ensuring that his surroundings supported his ability to think, reflect, and act. He reminded himself that the mind, when left exposed to external noise, will naturally drift. His solution was not to fight distraction, but to remove the sources of it. Seneca, in his reflections on time management, warned against environments that quietly steal attention. He observed that most people do not realize how much of their time is lost until it is already gone. Conversations that add no value, habits that drain energy, surroundings that promote passivity. He saw all of these as obstacles to a focused, intentional life. He believed that eliminating unnecessary distractions was just as important as cultivating good habits. Epictetus took an even stricter stance, arguing that those who fail to control their environment are choosing to remain trapped by it. He taught that if a person surrounds themselves with distractions, they should not be surprised when they struggle to focus. He believed that people often make life harder for themselves by designing environments that work against their goals rather than in favor of them. His advice was direct. If you want to be disciplined, remove the things that make discipline difficult. Modern psychology confirms what the Stoics understood centuries ago. Studies show that environmental cues have a stronger impact on behavior than self-control alone. People who leave their gym clothes out are more likely to work out. Those who keep junk food out of sight eat healthier. Workers who silence notifications and create structured workspaces are dramatically more productive than those who rely on willpower alone. The brain naturally follows the path of least resistance, so the key is to make the right path easier and the wrong path harder. So how can you shape your environment for success? Reduce friction for positive habits. If you want to read more, place a book where you normally reach for your phone. If you want to exercise, prepare your workout gear in advance. Increase friction for distractions. Keep your phone in another room while working. Disable notifications. Make procrastination inconvenient. Design spaces with purpose. Have a dedicated area for deep work, a separate space for rest, and remove anything that tempts unnecessary delay. Marcus Aurelius structured his environment to minimize distraction. Seneca saw that time is lost in unnoticed ways, often due to the surroundings we create. Epictetus believed that discipline is not just about self-control, but about removing the need for constant resistance. The lesson is simple. If you struggle with procrastination, don't just try to overcome it. redesign your world so that it no longer controls you. Dopamine addiction, how it ruins your ability to focus on goals. The mind is wired to seek pleasure. Every time you scroll through social media, binge watch a show, or eat something sugary, your brain releases dopamine, a neurotransmitter responsible for motivation, reward, and pleasure. This system is not inherently bad. In fact, it's what drives humans to achieve, create, and explore. But in today's world, where instant gratification is available at every turn, dopamine has become a trap. Instead of fueling progress, it now fuels distraction. It convinces you to seek immediate pleasure over long-term rewards, making deep focus and goal achievement feel like an uphill battle. Dopamine addiction is not just about obvious vices like social media or video games. It's about how the modern world has rewired the brain to expect constant stimulation. The reason people struggle to focus on a long-term project, to sit down and work on something difficult, or to resist procrastination is not because they lack discipline. It's because their brains have been trained to crave fast rewards. The moment a task feels too slow, too difficult, or not immediately rewarding, the brain instinctively searches for a quicker source of pleasure, checking messages, refreshing a feed, opening another tab. Marcus Aurelius warned against becoming a slave to fleeting pleasures. He saw that the mind, if left undisciplined, would always seek the easiest and most pleasurable route, even at the cost of long-term fulfillment. He reminded himself that true satisfaction comes not from indulgence, but from mastery over one's desires. He understood that what feels good in the moment is often what weakens the will over time. Seneca took this further, recognizing that people often trade their most valuable resource, time, for meaningless pleasures that add nothing to their lives. He saw that the pursuit of quick gratification blinds people to their own potential, keeping them endlessly entertained but never fulfilled. He believed that true happiness is not found in chasing one dopamine hit after another, but in engaging deeply with life's challenges and pursuits. He warned against becoming addicted to distraction, noting that the greatest minds in history were not those who consumed endlessly, but those who created, reflected, and worked through discomfort. Epictetus, ever focused on self-discipline, taught that those who cannot control their desires will always be controlled by them. He understood that dopamine-driven habits do not just waste time, they weaken the mind's ability to concentrate, endure discomfort, and achieve meaningful goals. He advised his students to practice delayed gratification, to consciously resist easy pleasures in favor of long-term growth. To him, the ability to sit with discomfort, to work through boredom, to focus without needing constant entertainment, was the ultimate form of freedom. Modern neuroscience confirms what the Stoics understood. Studies show that overexposure to high dopamine activities, endless scrolling, video games, junk food, rewires the brain to crave immediate rewards, reducing patience, focus, and willpower. People who constantly chase fast pleasure struggle to stay engaged with anything that requires sustained effort. The ability to work deeply, to concentrate, to push through difficult tasks is directly weakened by the overconsumption of instant gratification. So, how can you reset your brain and reclaim your ability to focus? Reduce exposure to artificial dopamine spikes, limit social media, minimize mindless entertainment, and resist the urge for constant stimulation. Increase tolerance for boredom and discomfort. Train your brain to focus on difficult tasks without needing immediate rewards. Create a dopamine reset. Spend time in activities that require deep attention, reading, learning, problem-solving, without the interference of constant digital stimulation. Marcus Aurelius resisted indulgence, understanding that discipline is the path to strength. Seneca saw that a life of distraction is a life wasted. Epictetus believed that those who cannot control their desires are not free. The lesson is clear. Dopamine should be a tool for motivation, not a trap for distraction. If you do not take control of what stimulates your brain, the modern world will do it for you, and it will keep you entertained, but never fulfilled. The 2-minute rule: how to start anything with zero resistance. The hardest part of any task is the first step. The brain resists starting because it sees the full weight of the work ahead: hours of effort, potential frustration, the uncertainty of whether success is even possible. This is why procrastination thrives. Not because people are incapable, but because the act of starting feels overwhelming. The solution is not to wait for motivation, nor is it to force sheer willpower. It is to lower the resistance so much that the mind has no excuse not to act. This is where the 2-minute rule comes in. The principle is simple. If a task feels too big, commit to just 2 minutes of it. Instead of thinking I need to write a full chapter, commit to writing 1 sentence. Instead of I have to work out for an hour, just do 1 push-up. Instead of I need to clean the entire house, just pick up 1 item. The goal is not immediate completion. It is simply to start. Why does this work? Because the biggest obstacle to productivity is inertia. The longer a task is avoided, the heavier it feels. But once movement begins, resistance weakens. This is known as the Zeigarnik effect. The brain dislikes unfinished tasks, meaning that once something is started, the mind naturally wants to continue. Most people find that after the first 2 minutes, momentum takes over. 1 sentence turns into a paragraph, 1 push-up turns into 10, 1 cleaned item turns into an organized room. The hardest part is always the first step, but after that, the mind shifts from avoidance to engagement. Marcus Aurelius understood that waiting for the right moment to begin is self-deception. He reminded himself constantly that hesitation is a trick of the mind, that the time to act is always now. He wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I am rising to do the work of a human being." He saw that the mind resists effort, but action, no matter how small, breaks the cycle of avoidance. Seneca took a similar approach, seeing hesitation as the enemy of progress. He warned that the longer one delays action, the harder it becomes. His solution was direct: start before you feel ready. He believed that people wait too long, overthinking, analyzing, fearing imperfection, when in reality, action itself dissolves doubt. He knew that even the grandest achievements begin with a single movement, and that perfection is never the requirement, only progress is. Epictetus saw that the key to self-mastery is breaking through mental resistance. He observed that people often fail, not because the task is difficult, but because their perception of it is exaggerated. His advice was clear: when facing hesitation, reduce the task to its smallest possible action. By doing so, the brain is tricked into engaging rather than resisting. Modern psychology reinforces this wisdom. Studies show that once a person commits to a small action, they are significantly more likely to continue. The 2-minute rule is effective because it bypasses the mind's tendency to overthink, replacing procrastination with effortless momentum. So how can this be applied? If writing a report feels overwhelming, write 1 sentence. If going to the gym feels too hard, put on your workout clothes. If reading a book seems like too much, read just one paragraph. The goal is not to rely on motivation, it is to eliminate excuses. Marcus Aurelius acted despite hesitation. Seneca believed that starting is more important than planning, and Epictetus saw that small actions lead to great outcomes. The lesson is clear. Getting started is the hardest part, but once you do, everything else becomes easier. Motivation is a myth, the real secret to staying consistent. People often believe that success is about motivation, that those who achieve great things are simply more inspired, more driven, more passionate. But this is an illusion. The truth is, motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. Some days, it's easy to take action. Other days, everything feels like a struggle. And this is where most people fail, not because they lack ability, but because they rely on a feeling that was never meant to last. The mind is wired to seek comfort. When motivation is high, action feels effortless. But when it fades, the brain defaults to avoiding effort. This is why so many people start strong, but struggle to maintain consistency. The reality is, those who succeed do not act because they feel motivated. They act because they have trained themselves to act regardless of how they feel. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. He reminded himself that the body may resist, that the mind may make excuses, but that action must not depend on temporary emotions. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, "I am rising to do the work of a human being." He did not wait for motivation. He conditioned himself to act despite resistance. He knew that hesitation is a trick of the mind, and that discipline, not fleeting inspiration, is what moves a person forward. Seneca took a similar stance, warning that people waste too much time waiting to feel ready. He believed that those who rely on motivation will accomplish little because motivation is external, but discipline is internal. He wrote, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." He saw that success is not the result of passion alone, but of consistent, deliberate action, even on the days when enthusiasm is absent. Epictetus was even more direct. He saw that those who wait for motivation are slaves to their emotions. He taught that true freedom is found in self-governance, the ability to act based on values and principles rather than moods. He believed that discipline is a muscle, and those who do not train it will always struggle with inconsistency. His philosophy was clear: do what needs to be done, not what you feel like doing. Modern psychology confirms this ancient wisdom. Studies show that habits, not motivation, are the foundation of consistency. People who rely on feeling inspired will always struggle, but those who build routines and systems ensure that progress happens even on bad days. The key is removing choice, making action automatic rather than something that requires constant willpower. So how do you break free from the cycle of motivation and inconsistency? Build habits that remove decision-making. If working out is non-negotiable, you don't need motivation to do it. If writing every day is a habit, you don't debate whether to start. Lower the resistance to action. Make the first step easy. If it's a workout, commit to just 5 minutes. If it's a project, write 1 sentence. Once started, momentum builds. Separate emotions from action. A task does not need to feel exciting to be worthwhile. Learn to work even when it's uncomfortable. Marcus Aurelius refused to wait for inspiration. He acted. Seneca saw that discipline, not passion, determines outcomes. Epictetus knew that the mind must serve you, not the other way around. The lesson is simple but powerful. Motivation is a myth. Those who succeed do not rely on it. They train themselves to act, no matter what. The greatest battle you will ever fight is not against the world, it is against yourself, against the thoughts that convince you to wait, against the excuses that tell you tomorrow is a better time to start, against the habits that keep you trapped in hesitation. The truth is, procrastination is not about laziness. It is about control. Either you take control of your mind, or your mind takes control of you. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology confirmed it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that action must come before feeling, that hesitation is simply the mind's way of avoiding discomfort. Seneca warned that people waste years waiting to feel ready, when in reality, readiness is created through action itself. Epictetus saw that true freedom is not found in avoiding work, but in training the mind to act despite resistance. They knew that success is not determined by talent or motivation, it is determined by discipline. Your brain will always try to resist effort. It will convince you that there is more time, that the task is too big, that you are not prepared. But the greatest truth is this: nothing changes until you act. The mind can be tricked, rewired, reshaped, but only if you take the first step. If you are waiting for the right moment, it will never come. If you are waiting for motivation, it will fade. The only thing that moves you forward is your ability to act, even when you don't feel like it. So the question is no longer, why do I procrastinate? The real question is, what are you going to do about it?